We're going to review for the quiz tomorrow on the first 3 rules of exponents. So let's just look at number 1. What's the answer to number 1? Negative 1. I know you guys are thinking, wait a minute, didn't you say yesterday that if your power was even, then you'd have a positive answer? But the thing was, you needed parentheses around it, right? So right here, you have to actually think of the 1 to the 28th power first, and that's just 1. And then this negative sign, you just take it and put in front of your answer. So the answer is negative 1. Make sense? Okay, so number 2, what's the answer to number 2? Positive 36 is correct. Number 3?
Negative 32.
Negative 32. Why is that? Because 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32. And it is a negative on the inside, and it is to an odd power, so my answer will be negative. So that rule did apply right there because you do have that negative inside the parentheses, so you have to think about it. If this would have been an even, if this would have been 6, then this would have been actually a negative in here with a 6 right here. It would have been a positive answer, not a negative answer. Or if it would have been a 4, that would have been a positive answer, not a negative answer. Let's move on to number 4 down here. This does require rule 3, which is distributing the outside exponent to each inside exponent. There's a 1 right there and a 1 right there, so you have to distribute to both. And your answer will be, anybody? Close. 64. 64x to the 6th. Number 5, if you haven't copied it down, please copy it down. Number 5, we have parentheses, but notice that there is no exponent. There is no exponent out here that you need to distribute. And there is no exponent out here that you need to distribute. So in reality, those parentheses are kind of unnecessary. You just need to know that you're multiplying between the parentheses, and you also need to know that you're multiplying here, multiplying there. So it's all pure multiplication, which means you could rearrange so it'll be nicer for you. I want to start with the coefficients. 3 and negative 5. I'm going to end up with negative 15 as my first part of my answer. But then again, the g to the 4th and the g to the 7th, I'm going to rewrite that also. G to the 4th, G to the 7th. I'm just rearranging things. And the last one, the H, there's nothing to pair it up with, so I'm just going to bring it down, H. And let's actually do the math. 3 times negative 5, negative 15. The G to the 4th times G to the 7th is what? G to the 28th? No, what is it? G to the 11. Power when you're multiplying with the same base, add the exponents. And then the H, you just bring it down. And that's your final answer. It looks ugly in red. 15 G to the 11 H. Did you guys get a chance to copy down number 6? No? Go for it. So again, this is rule 3, where you take the outside exponent 6 and distribute it to each and every exponent on the inside, and you're going to multiply because of power to a power. You multiply. So there's really a 1 right there, a 1 on the x, a 7 on the y, and an 8 on the z. Before even beginning, if this negative sign is worrying you, you could simply think that this whole number is negative, and it is to an even power. So what's your answer going to be, positive or negative? It's going to be positive, right? Because if you were to expand this negative number and multiply it 6 times with itself, you'd be able to pair them all up and everything becomes positive. So anyhow, I don't have to worry about that negative sign. I already know my answer will be positive. And I'm going to distribute the outside 6 to each of those. So I'll have 2 to the 6th, x to the 6th, y to the what? 42. Power to a power, you multiply. And 6 and 8, what do I get? Z to the 48. Perfect. So final answer is, we could actually do 2 to the 6th. That's 2 times 2, 4 times 2, 64. If you go all the way, multiplying 2 with itself 6 times. 64x to the 6th, y to the 42, z to the 48. Expect to see all of these types of questions on tomorrow's quiz. Let's move on to number 7. This one's fun. It scares a lot of people because it has a fraction, but it's really the same thing as any other problem that we've been doing with Rule 3. Okay, Rule 3 says if you have a parenthesis on the parenthesis with an exponent on the outside, and there is no addition or subtraction on the inside, and there is none, right? There's multiplication here, there's division between the 2 and the 3, but there is no addition or subtraction. So Rule 3 is still applicable here. You could take that 3 and distribute it to each and every exponent on the inside and multiply them because of power to a power you multiply. So I really have a 2 to the 1, a 3 to the 1, and a k to the 1. All I'm going to do is take this 3 and multiply them on all of those 3 exponents. So I'm going to end up with 2 to the 3rd, 3 to the 3rd, k to the 3rd. So my final answer, ladies and gentlemen, what will it be? Excellent. 8 over 27, k to the 3rd power. Let's move on to this next one. Now, I know most of us haven't had time to copy this down, so let's do that right now. We're going to take that rectangle and express the area given the length and the width, or the base and the height. So we need to know that area is really base times height. Right? We should all know that. So the base is 7a to the 5th times b to the 7th, and the height is 3ab to the 2nd. So you could rearrange, if it helps you, do it. 7 times 3, let's write that out. And then you could go a to the 5th times a, write it out. And then the b to the 7th times b squared, b to the 7th times b squared. You don't have to do this. Once you get the hang of it, you'll just be able to do this in your head. Oh, 3 times 7 is 21. And then a times a to the 5th is a to the 6th. And then b to the 2nd times b to the 7th, that's b to the 9th. And that's it. So this part right here of actually organizing everything, it's only there if you're a little confused about it. You could do that. It'll help you out. It'll be easier to see that 7 times 3 is 21. a to the 5th times a, that's a to the 1. Add 5 plus 1, you get a to the 6th. b to the 7th times b to the 2nd is b to the 9th. Add 7 plus 2, that's how we got b to the 9th. Number 9. Jot that down. If you take that 3, put it there and put it there, now you already know that this is a negative and it's to an odd power, so it's going to stay negative. So you are going to have negative, but this x to the 3rd and y to the 3rd is your new, whatever you call this. This first part, there it is, distributing the 3. Now this other one, there's nothing to distribute, so you just bring it down. So let's just bring down the x squared and the z. And of course, we're multiplying with all of them, so we could rearrange it, right? So you're going to have negative x to the 3rd times x to the 2nd times y to the 3rd times z. So negative x to the 5th, y to the 3rd, z is the final answer.
That's what I said.
You forgot the z.
But I said the z.
Oh, the only reason you got it wrong, it's not because you don't know how to do it. It's because you weren't doing it on paper. You're trying to do it in your head. Oh, I am recording. So there's a couple more I want you guys to copy down. No, you don't have to. I mean, unless there's work to be shown, but there's a lot of them that you don't have to. So let's all copy this one down, please. Number 10. Once again, we have parentheses with an exponent. Here's parentheses with the exponent on the outside. And the rule says as long as you don't have addition or subtraction in here, which we don't, you could distribute that outside exponent of 3 to each and every exponent on the inside and multiply, because of power to a power you multiply. So on the 4 you have a 1, and on the y you have a 1. So let's take this 3 and put it right there on the first one. That'll be a x. 3 times 3 is 9. Over, take that 3, put it down there. It's going to be 4 to the 3rd. And then down here, y to the 1 with the 3 is going to be y to the 3rd when you multiply them. And the only other thing you could do on this blue answer is the 4 to the 3rd. So your final answer will be x to the 9th over 4 to the 3rd is not 12. It's 4 times 4, which is 16, times 4, which is 64, y to the 3rd. So that's your final answer on number 10. Let's try another one that you might see on tomorrow's quiz. Wait a minute, I said test. It's a quiz. So looking at this one, we need to distribute the 2 to each and every exponent on the inside and multiply. Now, before we even begin, I probably shouldn't have drawn that. This is a negative number, and when you square it, it becomes what? Positive. So we don't have to worry about that negative sign anymore. If you want, you can just scratch it out because we already know it's going to be positive. So we do have 3 squared x to the what? 4th, because 2 times 2 is 4, and y to the 6th. Perfect. Okay, now looking at the other one, we're going to take this 3, put it right there on the 2 to the 3rd, x to the 12th, and y to the 3rd. So now, since it's all pure multiplication between each and every term, let's actually write our coefficients first, the 3 squared, which is 9, and the 2 to the 3rd, which is 8. And then let's bring down the x to the 4th, and the x to the 12th, and finally y to the 6th, and y to the 3rd. And now that it's all organized, we could clearly see that the answer is 72, x to the 16, y to the 18, right? 9. I'm just kidding. Just checking to see if you guys are paying attention. That's your answer. Let's try a couple more. So on this one, this is rule 2, power to a power, you multiply. X to the 3rd to the 4th, multiply 3 times 4, you get 12. X to the 12 is your answer. Number 13 is equally the same. 2 times 4 is 8, and 8 times 6. 6 times 8 is 48. So x to the 48th power. These will be on tomorrow's quiz. Of course, there's a large portion of the quiz that's multiple choice, and I will give you distractors. I'm going to give you some that the multiple choice answer is 7 because some people will add them, right? Or the multiple choice answer here might be like, 4, 6, 12, because 2 plus 4 is 6, so that'd be incorrect. So I'm going to give you wrong answers that are on purpose on the multiple choice. Be careful. Let's try this one. This is the last one we're going to do, and expect to see something like this on the quiz tomorrow. So Jezreel provided us this answer. Let's see if he's right. First thing to do is to take this outside exponent of 2 and distribute it to each and every term on the inside of the exponents, that is, and multiply those. So when you distribute to each of those, actually, I'm sorry, before distributing, you could come to the conclusion that this negative number in here, squared, will be positive. So you're going to have to mess with that negative sign anymore. So you're going to end up with 2 squared, a squared, b squared. Now notice that there is nothing to distribute here. There's nothing to distribute here because there is no exponent on the outside. So in reality, this parenthesis and also these parentheses are unnecessary. You could just bring them down and rewrite them without the parentheses. So 3 times a to the 3rd times 5 times b to the 7th. Why did I put 2? Yeah, that's lack of sleep for you right there. 7th. Okay, so now let's rearrange things. Let's go with the coefficients first. 2 squared, that's really 4, times 3 times 5. So that's going to be my coefficient on my answer, but let me rewrite the rest. Let me bring down the a squared and the a to the 3rd. A squared times a to the 3rd. Let me also bring down the b's. There's b squared right there and a b to the 7th. B squared and b to the 7th. If you show all your work, there's less likely of a chance that you make a mistake. So let's do the math. 4 times 3 is 12, times 5 is 60. A to the 5th because 2 plus 3 is 5. B to the 9th because 2 plus 7 is 9. Jezreel, it looks like you're on your way to an A tomorrow. And that's about it for this video. Make sure you study for the quiz.